Hey, this is Laura from A Brick Without a Wall here with Amber from Road to Tar Valon. And today we are going to be talking about the season 2 of Shadow and Bone. I'm going to assume that everybody who's going to watch this has already seen season 1.
Spoilers, beware.
Spoilers literally everywhere. Things you may want to know, and then opinions you may not have thought of yet. Like, who's going to be the Smaug of this show? Because that's going to be a crucial award given out
I,
at the end.
at the very end. No,
At
I'm
the
really
end.
hyped for that. I want it to be at the beginning.
I,
Hmm.
I I can't. Not at the because I didn't make the decision till the last episode. I gave everybody a fair shot to be Smaug, but only one person can be it.
Now I have to look at the cast. Be like, who's my smog? Hmm.
It would depend on what you rate somebody as a Smaug by. Like
Yeah.
I'm not okay, like I know when we were
Yeah.
talking about
What
this
is
for
the
another
smog award? What is the
so the
smog
Smaug
award?
Award goes to the person who is the most over the top theatrical, the person who is got the biggest personality. Like
Okay.
you've got to be theatrical, you've got to be over the top. It has to be daytime Emmy at every second. That is Smaug. Smaug is
Okay.
what vying for a daytime Emmy, no matter, and like all of the possible theater awards ever given. Smaug wants to be awarded everything. Just because he's a villain doesn't mean that like everybody has to be a villain. Maybe he might not have been a villain if they hadn't have pressed him so hard. You know,
Okay. I'm gonna have to think about it.
he got pretty mad about being, tricked by a hobbit, so he didn't respond well. But moving on from Smaug, because I could talk about him all day and his character. Uh, what were some of your favorite things from season 2?
Okay, so obviously we've talked about this before, but I do think that the overall like vibe of the show where yeah, it's more for like a younger audience, like that's apparent, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I think with that in mind, like they did have a good tone, like the tone of the show in general, like the vibe of it felt like its own thing. It didn't feel like it was trying to be Lord of the Rings or Game
Right.
of Thrones. Like it has its own identity. The look of the show, the costumes, the lighting, everything feels pretty cohesive. And it doesn't feel like they're vying to be the next, like, I don't know, Game of Thrones. I feel like that's what every fantasy show now, like, that's the attempt. And this feels like a separate thing.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. It's very different, which is why I started watching season 1 in the first place, is because it didn't necessarily feel like a lot of the other shows that were coming out that felt like they wanted to be other shows that already existed or take a couple shows and hybrid them together.
Right. Like they have their own material, like bring that original stuff to the show. Like you don't need to, I don't know, copy the vibe, I guess.
Yeah, I've never read the book, so I would assume that that helps with like having its own more original material, but the vibe is, yeah, it's different than anything I've watched before. Like,
The romance, like I'm not here for any of the romance in this show. Like that is not my thing. But what I did like is more of like the comedic characters, I guess.
absolutely.
That I
Um,
think is where like these little moments with the more like theatrical, funny characters, that's really good. But I will say, like, on the other end of the spectrum, like, there are some characters that are like really, really taking themselves extra seriously. Like
can
General
we
Kirrigan,
can we
I'm
talk
sorry.
can we talk about why Kirrigan is so colonial?
Yes, please.
What is this man's problem? Like, I've never seen anybody simp so hard for somebody and be such an asshole all simultaneously.
I don't
Like,
get it. Like, I don't understand why there's any attraction between Alina and Kirrigan at all. Like,
like
I
so in
don't get it.
season I'm going to jump back to season 1 here. Like when she first kind of starts liking him, I mean, I get it. It's
Okay,
not
at
a
that
healthy
point,
relationship, but I
right.
understand where it comes from.
At that point when they first meet and he's like helping her, like I get that. But like what it evolves into, I'm just like, what? I don't know.
He is so unlikable. I almost dislike him more than Joffrey Baratheon. Like
Bold, bold, but I like it.
I don't know. Like at least Joffrey kept it, status quo
Mhm.
terrible all the time. So, but Kerrigan like manages to reach these new levels of terrible all the time. Like every time I'm like, bro, you are such an L. Like every time he comes on screen in season 2, I'm like, well, somebody's about to take an L.
I feel like when he's getting ready, like as soon as he puts on the black jacket, like I feel like he is Kerrigan. You know
He's
what
got
I
his
mean?
he's always monologuing too. Like
Yes, yes.
always got a monologue ready and queued up, ready to go.
Hmm.
And then he's like,
He also talks to himself quite a bit. Like, obviously, that's a monologue, but like
yeah,
he's having conversations with himself quite often.
he does this thing where he like compliment sandwiches somebody. I have it written down here because he was like, he walks up to that tide maker and he's like, hey, do you remember how much your family asked me for when they found out you were Grisha? Don't worry, it was worth it. But don't forget, you owe me. Like, why does he always have to open everything like that?
Oh, Kerrigan, Kerrigan.
I don't want to get too ahead on him because I have some like real burners of things to. I have one compliment for him. I do have one compliment
Tell me.
in my critique sandwich for
Hmm.
him is that look, I'm with his Kefta color reworks. Like it has
Yeah.
this whole like Christmas at Hogwarts feel, and I'm here for it. The ethereal key, I think that's how it's pronounced. Um, Changing that from that like royally blue to
Hmm.
a deep forest green, yes. But also, why did he stop there? Why is that the
Was it
only
just the was it just
it was
those two that get
it was
revamped?
it was just the the etherealky, which is the blue keftas. So we've got tide makers. I put a note in here with all of the embroidery because that's what determines like what you
Hmm.
actually do. So the pale blue are tide makers, the red is inferni, the silver are squallers, and gold is for the sun summoner. But then it also says in here that she no longer continues to wear that the cloak of her type anymore. But he didn't change any of the other ones. He left the other ones the same, and I'm disappointed in him. Like, did he learn nothing from Nike? New colorways every season. Like,
No, like I, and this is just like a fantasy thing in general, but like every time that something is like there is a color-coded uniform, I mean, Wheel of Time did this too. I
oh
feel
man,
very like Power Rangery, you know what I
really?
mean? Well, like color-coded uniforms,
Yeah.
I don't know. Power Rangers. Power
Huh.
Rangers. But the embroidery, like with Shadow and Bone, we've talked, I mean, you've said to me you really like the costumes. And I think that like that's really smart. Like the coats, the jackets with the embroidery, because there's still like differences and you can visually see like that they're not all alike. They're all having specialties and something different via the wardrobe, but it just looks nice. It's clean and it's not too over the top. And they did use more of
Yeah.
these like muted colors where it's not like bright yellow or bright green. Like it's not so, I don't know, in your face.
Yeah, it's oh man, the costuming in this show.
It's
It's a
good.
10. It's
It's
a 10.
good.
The costuming is so good.
The only costumes that I did not like, the only ones at all, is at the very end of season 2 where she has, her debut with Nikolai at the very end,
The the coronation.
the coronation, and she brings in Genya and I forget what the other,
Zoya.
Zoya. Their dresses that they had to wear were very like Barbie. Like they were very
I
childlike almost.
I made a note about those. Her Alina's
Alina looked great.
Alina's coronation dress is wildly impressive.
Hmm.
Uh I didn't necessarily like Zoya and Jenya's dresses, but I appreciate that they got her a matching eye patch.
Yes. Yes.
And really, the only thing I didn't like about the dresses was the colors.
Yeah, that pink, that like princess
It was
pink.
that pink and like sagey green. If they had changed the colors, the dresses would have been phenomenal.
Yeah,
That was just a
it would
personal
have been
nit.
better. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like
I,
that said, like that was my only critique out of all of the costumes in the entire season. Like that's pretty good. That's pretty
yeah.
good.
No, I mean, oh man, the costuming for this show, even in season one, like the costuming for this show is incredible. Another show that I think the costuming is incredible in is also The Witcher.
Yeah, The Witcher is also pretty good. I
Yeah.
was really impressed with Mal's costumes, and even though his are more like subdued, they look functional. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's rugged, but it looks lived in, worn in.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like I, he doesn't look poorly put together. It looks appropriate, but yeah, it
Mhm.
looks like rugged and lived in and usable.
Mhm.
Like, you know, whatever time period that is in, Carhartt sent him some goods. Like, it looks
Exactly.
like cool stuff. Um,
Ravkin Dickies.
Ravkin Dickies. You know who has some of my favorite costumes though, are the crows.
Yeah. Yeah, they look good always.
Kaz Brecker always looks good. Like he always looks GQ'd out.
Yes, he does.
But better than his costumes are Strumhold's.
Yeah.
The privateer.
He's probably my favorite male character of
You
season
really?
2. Yeah.
I got a lot to say about Nikolai, but
I think it's just because he comes from a show. He was on the OA. I don't know if you've ever watched the
mm-mm.
OA. It is bananas, but that's besides the point. When he showed up, I was like, "Oh, it's that guy from that show." So I think he immediately caught my eye because he's the only actor that I have recognized in both seasons.
Okay. Um I really liked Nikolai as a character. He was a really nice addition to the storyline because he brought a lot of pizzazz to it. First, he's, running around undercover as a privateer slash
Mhm.
pirate, which I guess he's really concerned about the distinction. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? But he's got like cool characters on his crew.
Hmm.
His inventions are
Yes.
off the chain. Like,
His whole posse is great. Like his
yeah,
whole posse, probably my
yeah.
favorite of the show.
That decoupling airliner he created on a ship was lit. Like, that was just smart. I can't get over how smart this man is. Like, across the board, he's a dime, dude. he's an attractive guy, but that's not really what I'm concerned about. Like, he's intellectually,
Mhm.
psychologically, and emotionally intelligent. And while he may not
Yeah.
always have the right reaction to things, like what you would consider to be the right reaction, he autocorrects like almost instantaneously because he's so receptive to listening. Like,
Yeah.
he actually hears what other people have to say. And you know the part where he tells his mom, like, look, I understand that things have been hard for you and this and that, but you still decided to make these choices that did a lot of harm to other people, and we can't look past that. Like,
Mhm.
good for you, because that's probably not a common trait amongst royals.
No. No. I loved his reveal. I thought that was very theatrical when he like takes his jacket off and then he has the Ravkin um like royal, I don't know, I'm sure it has
They're
some type of like insignia or whatever, and everyone's like, "Oh," and like it's you, the prince. I thought that moment was fun.
So I got something to say about Kaz Brecker that I know you'll appreciate, and I hope other people appreciate. But this dude may be tactically smarter than Bill Compton, and
Tactically.
Bill Compton is a tactical character. Like, everything that man does has a motive and a tactic to it. And Kaz Brecker might be the only character I've seen recently that is outdoing Bill Compton from True Blood on how far ahead he's thinking.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, with like all of his planning that they do, like he's obviously like the mastermind behind it. He doesn't really have like his weapon is his brain, you know, where
Right.
everyone else kind of has their thing. Like Inej, she can throw knives and disappear and yes, yeah.
She's
Jesper. He has his whole metal stuff that he can do. Tiny, Tiny Bomb Boy also has his thing. Obviously, not remembering the names very well.
uh so for the crows, we have Inej the Wraith, then we have Jesper the Durast, Wyland the demolitions expert.
Violin,
Yeah, now we
violin.
have and I like that the crows are went from a trio to, what would that be? Is that a quintet?
Yeah, yeah.
A quintet. So they added Nina and Wylan. I think those are both excellent additions to the crows. Nina's a good character
Love
regardless.
Nina.
I love Nina.
Do.
She's got big personality. She's just saying it like she's just like, well, I'm just gonna say it.
She's the most like real looking, I feel like, of all the characters. She just looks like a real
Yeah,
person. Like, I
she
don't know,
does.
she's down to earth.
She has a very real quality about her. Like, she feels like a real person, definitely. Because
Yeah.
I mean, some of the characters don't necessarily feel like real people, but this whole like Ocean's 11 vibe the crows have going on, somebody better call George Clooney because they could help him on his next heist.
Yes.
Like, I love it. I love this. Like, I'm not gonna call it Fast and the Furious because that would take away. Um, but them like running around stealing stuff, like, I could watch a show of just that. Just
Yeah.
take us to all the different countries and let them steal some stuff in every country. That way we get to see all these beautiful sets, cuz really that's got to be like one of the crowning achievements of these shows is the set here. Like, the set is every single, I don't, is there a bad set that you've seen yet?
The only one that I was kind of on was the Shuhan set, and that was just because it was like one little enclosed space. So it felt like a set. Where the other ones, you're like out on the streets and they're having some chase scenes, and you get like this feeling that it is a real place. But when they're in Shuhan, they have that little like tea party session, and then everything else takes place inside where they're trapped.
Oh, Van's place.
Yeah, so it's like small. And that obviously like made it feel like a set, but it didn't look bad. It was just
Enclosed and like,
enclosed.
yeah.
Yeah. And two, it doesn't help when like a lot of the other sets are outdoors, which is really smart because obviously it's going to be a lot more expensive to get these like palace shots, like where they have the coronation. Like that chef's kiss, like beautiful, so good, so
Oh,
good. Like if you go on like castle tours of like real deal castles, like that's what it looks like. It looks nice. And Shuhan set, it was like teetering a little bit on like Asian restaurant inside.
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, it was. Uh I really liked the tea set even though it was like super small. I really enjoyed it and like
I thought it was fun. It wasn't bad.
the couple clips that they had, like the really short clips they had of them in like the market stall area was
Hmm.
cool. Um I would agree that like Ovan's house or estate, whatever you want to call it, was the most disappointing set of the season, but I wouldn't even call it disappointing necessarily because the landscaping was super
Hmm.
cool and it was very it reminded me of the kind of like the homes from Ronin 47. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I love
Mm-mm.
Keanu Reeves, so I watch all of his movies, but um it reminded me kind of like of a much different period of time in Japan.
Yeah. Would have been nice to see like more gardens or something, like a little bit more greenery or something
I would
like
have
that.
loved to see more like greenery and landscaping in Shuhan. Like I really really hope we get to see more of Shuhan in season 3 because
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to see what it looks like.
The
Um
opening up of the world in this show was really nice. Like Ketterdam, like very obviously feels like somewhere in Western Europe. Like, and then we've got Shuhan, which is like you're taking it further east. And so like you can tell like as they're showing you the map, which I did love that detail because Alina's a cartographer. Like a lot of the times in fantasy shows, they will do these like sweeping like images of like travel shown on a map. But here it makes sense. Like here there is a reason why I like that because it goes with her story and it doesn't just feel like a trope of like fantasy in general. So I liked that. What was the other set? Oh, the I don't remember the name of the place, but it had the more like Caribbean vibe to it. And loved the costumes, loved that set. Probably my uh, outdoor wise, like that was my favorite.
okay. Yeah, I oh outdoor wise. There's a lot of beautiful sets in this show. Um I don't know about which would be my favorite outdoor set. There's a lot of them, but like with the indoor sets, you know what I find the most impressive about their sets is whoever is like doing the finishing work and design is so extensively detailed. There
Yeah.
is not a single thing left unthought about. Like those sets have life in them
Yeah.
just from all of the small details involved.
I really liked the scene where Genya is freed and she picks up, I don't know, some type of rod and starts smashing the bottles, like all of the little apothecary bottles. And like when I'm looking at indoor sets and things that feel like they have life in them, like there's just something about like all these little trinkets and whatnot that make a place feel lived in, that it has a purpose, that it's used. So I really liked that set. And I really liked the tiny bomb boy. I keep forgetting his name. The little guy from the crows. His lair where he's doing his
Oh,
experiments
Wylan.
and stuff. Wylan, I loved that one as well.
Um, you had cut out there for just a second when I was like, mm. what's happening.
It could just be it could be the internet connection in general.
Okay. I'm trying to. My internet here is always. It's saying that my internet's fine. We're just gonna keep going. Uh, I really liked Wylan. His workshop layer, whatever you want to call it, was amazing. And yeah, I actually have it written down in my notes when Jenya beats everything in that room and cracks that desk in half. Like hell yeah, fuck Kirrigan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ruin all of his stuff before you go.
Yes. Yes.
I really enjoy Jenya as a character too. I know like it could be easy to be upset with her for the things that she does in season 1, but honestly, like how are you going to be mad at somebody who is on their own and has been going through years and years of endless forms of abuse and they're just trying to stay alive? She's not going
Right.
to roll up on Kirrigan and be like, "I'm not doing what you want." She's gonna do whatever he says until she can get away, like she did.
Right.
Yeah, she beat his desk, like she beat the workshop up and left everything a
Good.
mess, but she knew
Glad.
she was leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't want to fight Kirrigan on my own.
No, and she's not a brawler. She's not a fighter in that like physical aspect. Like her magic doesn't involve that. So like I know it's
Right.
not magic, but like she has to be smart about this. And what I love about that plot line is that they didn't insert some kind of weird like tension between her and Alina. Alina was like, no, like she was a victim, like get your shit together. She's cool. We're forgiving her. She's coming with us. And that could have been so annoying if they drew that out and made it like like we can't forgive her. Throw her in the chokey, you know?
I actually, one of my favorite things about this show is how emotionally intelligent the characters are. Uh, I got really weepy with the Alina and Jenya scene because like Alina was caring and
Mhm.
kind and reasonable, and she calls out Kirrigan using narcissistic abuse tactics. She stands her ground about how it's real and how you can't understand it if you don't live through it. Like I'm with her on that. Like that made me like Alina a lot more as a character because her character can be a little corny.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's too just like the I think in fantasy, like so many characters just are, you know what I
Well,
mean?
that's true.
Like
Yeah,
and
that
then
is
too when
true.
it's like for like more like a young adult series, like
That's also true. I was surprised that there was like the semblance of a sex scene in there.
that was surprising. That was surprising.
I was like, what's happening here? I didn't realize that that's where, because like the show's been pretty non sexual up in,
Mhm.
I mean, there was like kind of a thing in season 1 with her and Kirrigan, but nothing really ever happened. And then this season, but it made sense with the storyline. It did make sense in the storyline
Yeah.
for that to happen. And like their romance makes sense. And I really enjoyed how the author wrote in that once Mal had given up his power, that he didn't feel the same.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Like I think looking at it, it's a good way to like end things. But I was like confused at first because I wasn't quite figuring out like what changed all of a sudden. And then he's like, oh no, like I don't like literally like something has changed inside of me. Not like how I feel, but like there's a difference now. So like our
So
connection has been like severed in a way. So it just took me a minute to kind of like figure out what was happening. And that's been my like the hardest thing for me with this show in general because I feel
mhm.
like I need to do homework to figure out like all of the lingo and all of the world building, like what the different types of small science are out there, and then all the
Yeah.
distinctions between the two, and then what's the difference between the animal amplifiers and the human amplifiers. And they were ready to like chop Mal's finger off for whatever reason. I'm like, dude, just pull a tooth. Like, I don't get it. You can take a scale from the dragon. Like, you can't just like take a fingernail or something from Mal. Like, we got to kill him. Like, I don't understand what's
Well,
happening.
I mean, I agree there. I agree. The biggest element that's missing in the show is story building of like the differences between small science and magic. The
And that's what
only
I
in
love. Like, that I love
Oh,
that.
me too. And then they killed Bagra. The only
Mm.
person who could explain it, and the only one, she's the only character who's explained that whatsoever through the show, and now she's gone, so that's a thing. I was sad because I love Bagra as a character.
She's a really fun character. The actress is great.
Yeah, I love the way she drags her son. Like
Yeah,
she just
she chops his hands
drags.
off at the end. I was like, ooh, get him, Bagra. Get him.
But why was he keeping his hand like some sort of weird serial
Memento.
killer trophy? Like that was weird. What are you gonna do with it? Like, are
Kirrigan
you
is so over the top.
like was he putting it back on? No, he didn't because he had that his new David, I can't remember the guy's name, but his
New
new
David.
David made him a little like
Yeah,
metal
Jamie
hand
Jamie
that works.
Lannister hand. Yeah.
Yeah, but his hand works where Jamie Lannister's hand didn't work. Too bad he didn't have like a Durast or somebody around to help like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love Bagra, but I do wish that there was some more world building, like background information. There's not a lot of information about how these like I am not sure if the wars just started because of the fold or it was because of something else. Like, because the Theoden
Yeah.
War, I don't think that's about the fold, is it? The fold doesn't even, it like reaches right to the border of Fjerda. And then, like, Shuhan seems to be just a racism thing.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
seems to be flat out
Cut
racism.
and dry.
But the only one that seems to be at war is like, what, Ravka and East Ravka?
And I
Because
guess
nobody of
that's
them.
because of the fold. So like I don't know if this is supposed to be something similar to like a like East versus West Germany, like the Berlin Wall. Like after the fold has been there for so long, like these two places just kind of become something different. But like I would have loved to know more about the politics of this world and what's kind of driving the people to
Oh,
do
me
what they
too.
do.
You know, uh I do want to jump back to where you were talking about like how it didn't how at first you were like what's going on with him just being like okay, well I feel different now. I chalked that up to a child of destiny scenario. You know how we had talked about like
Hmm.
the children of destiny and how destiny like
From
basically is like
Witcher.
well, yeah, from The Witcher, you have the children of destiny, and when destiny's done with you, it's just done. So Mal has fulfilled his destiny, but he's still alive, which wasn't the original plan. Like the original plan from Destiny is this child of destiny will fall upon a sword to sacrifice himself for the greater good. So he walked past those three orphanages to
Hmm.
go to the one that Alina was at. And then now I can see why after finding out that his whole like purpose and destiny was to be a sacrifice for her has him feeling like but do I really like you like
Right,
how do
right.
so I get that
And I
I'm
like Mal. Like I want the best for him. Like go out there, have your adventure, find a new person. Like they don't need to be tethered to each other. Like I'm
no
not watching this show because I'm very invested in the Mal Alina relationship. So you do you, Mal. I'll still watch.
personally I think that relationship's going to be nothing but pain for Mal regardless like
Yeah. Yeah.
how how would
How,
you
how?
like just the way that it's like, well, he can just hang out on the sidelines while I'm married to Nikolai, but we'll be, you
Right?
know, it's I get political marriages, but this is how is that fair?
It's not. It's not at
I
all.
was So I was really impressed when she came to him at the end and was like, I think you should go and, you know,
Hmm.
live a life and figure out what's best for you. And she was like, I care about you and I want you to be happy. Like that made me like her character too, because she didn't act like a child. Like, well, not even a child, but she wasn't
Right,
just
right.
like self serving about it.
Hmm.
And
There was
that's what
showing
makes
real maturity there.
yeah, I actually find her as a much more palatable liberator than Daenerys Targaryen is for that exact reason. Because Daenerys Targaryen doesn't think about anyone but herself.
Yeah, I don't know. With Daenerys, like, I don't know. I still have like nightmares about the end of that show where I'm like, I don't know where it's supposed to go. I don't know what happened. But like, obviously, she's a very sympathetic character in the beginning. And here with Alina, she is very like even. Her performance throughout season one and season two, it's emotional maturity, like you said, but it's also like there's this stability about her, even though she's gone through some stuff with namely Kirrigan and Mal. But yeah, like she's a good, like you can tell she's a good person. Now I am confused with the end a little bit because it's almost like they're hinting at this darkness inside of her now because when she
Oh,
does the chop, the cut, the chop, the
now
cut to
look,
that protester, that Fjordan protester, it was like the shadow coming out of her.
look,
And
you
then
brought it up. I was trying to wait to get there, but that final scene was wildly unexpected. Like I was like, "What? What?" Like first of all, the set was phenomenal. All the costuming was phenomenal.
was good.
Um but then we get to like what is going on with Nikolai at the end. He's got the
Hmm.
shadow as a part
In
of him.
him.
Can he summon? I need to know now because I really okay. This is what I thought was going to happen. I thought when the Feared and Grisha started walking towards them with the drugs going, like
Hmm.
killing everybody around, I thought Nikolai was going to summon because he's
Mm.
now imbued with
Hmm.
Merzost magic. Like he's got to
Hmm.
be able to summon now. What I did not expect was that cut to come from her,
Hmm.
and now she's Shadow.
Right. And that's, I mean,
How?
how do you like? I'm just trying to envision what a season three looks like. Is it going to be this question of like, are they dark? Are they good? Or are they bad? You know, like it has to be it. And then, I mean, hopefully,
I
like they're building. I'm sure there are other plot lines going to be woven through, but yeah, the
I am
darkness.
I'm actually really glad I already own the books because that ending is going to drive me to read those books. Because I'm the kind of person who's like, I have to know what happens now because this took such a sharp turn that I didn't expect. Like,
Hmm.
I didn't expect Nikolai to be imbued with one of the shadows and then her throwing around shadow now. How did that happen to her? So I need that explained. Like how is
I
that
don't
even
get it.
possible?
So, okay, also another like suspicious moment is she brings Mal back to life because Nina was like, "Oh, like that wasn't me, that was on her." And we learned that like for Kirrigan to make something from nothing, like it takes like from you, I guess. So like what did she use to bring a corpse back to life? So like is there some type of dark science involved here now as well? I don't know.
So most in my like from what I remember, most things that use magic, there's a price for magic. This this world seems to have a really high cost to access magic. um I actually have it, like, again, to my notes, to the notes. In here, I was she did she use Merzost? Does she just have to like say the words please and then she's imbued with magic? Like, or is there something special about her? Like,
Yeah, that's
did
like
she,
big question mark. Big question
but
mark.
also did she use up all her light and then it went to shadow? Or like, I
Right?
don't
Oh,
know.
that's something I didn't even think about.
Cause like I've watched so much fantasy and read so much fantasy, I can pull from so many
Hmm.
possible arcs that this could take, but I don't know, because this show does genuinely surprise me a lot. Like, there are shows that are very predictable, and this show does take some predictable paths. It does,
Yeah.
but it's it's a little bit like, it's not quite as adult as other shows are. And but the predictability, like, of the paths that are taken are fine, because it's got a lot going on in the sides and in the backgrounds. But this was not something I predicted, and I don't really know how to. But that shadow cut she did was pretty litty. Like, she gave her a good one.
Yeah, she
She just,
did.
oh, like, right through her.
Then we have
Also, that light cut, the
the
light
like
cut she gave Kirrigan was lit too. I mean, like, literally lit.
deserved
Um,
deserved.
Kirrigan died a simp's death.
Alina.
He's all like, don't. What are you talking about, bro? You
No
hired
one
these
likes
people.
you. No one likes
Yeah,
him. His own people don't even like him. They're just scared
your
of him.
shadows, your shadows don't even like you. You hired these shadows. You gave them like everything that was left of you for them to protect you, and then when they do their job, you're like, don't do it. And then they were like, we don't have time for this. Like, you can't even decide on a standard operating procedure. Get out of here. And then she's like, you can't control him. And he's like, who cares? You and I could be together. Why is he so is okay, this is my question. Is he so after her solely because they're some of the few of the immortal? Well, they're not even necessarily immortal. Like, what do you call that? Like the Dinadai from Lord of the Rings? Like,
Yeah, they just seem to have like a very long, like a much longer lifespan than
yeah.
everyone else, but I just assumed it was because they're that much powerful. So like,
That's what I assume, but there's no real like background. Okay, there is some stuff, and you and I have talked about this, how like, as both being people who have read book series that have been made into shows, and I'm the kind of person who will start reading a book series after I see their show. That's how I read the
mhm.
Sookie Stackhouse novels. HBO killed it. They killed it. They made it better. Impossibly, they made a book series better. But I don't, there's, I
There's
don't know
a
what the books are like. And there are things that you cannot translate from a book into a show
mhm.
easily without devoting entire episodes to, like, there's things that, in book series that you and I have talked about from like The Wheel of Time or Game of Thrones that like would be really hard without a direct quote from somebody
Right.
to
Right.
work into a storyline. And I do see where they leave these things out because they don't translate individual well.
Mhm.
They're more of like an introspective imagination thing. But
They could have
there's some definite holes here that need to be filled in.
they could have used a couple more episodes, and this is This is not something, like, bad about Shadow and Bone, but it's something that I don't like about television in general, is that we've gotten away from I mean, I remember when some seasons would have, like, 13 episodes or something like that, and now we go down to, like, 8 or 7
Right.
or something, and it's, like, it's not enough, and then on top of that, with Shadow and Bone and other series, they're trying to cram in as much, like, action and suspense and energy so that there's not really this time to breathe, and what that does with a show like Shadow and Bone, they've introduced way like, a lot more characters this season, and I'm not connecting to very many of them because it's just like this
There's
happens,
so
then that
many.
happens, and there are so many threads of plot being woven that it's like whiplash, where I'm just like, "Okay, now we're over here, and now we're over there, and, oh, these people are a couple, like, these people are not." And when you're going at that speed and then also trying to figure out, like, what is this world like? What is the magic of this world? How does it work? Like, it can be very confusing. And this is something that I see repeated with a lot of fantasy shows now. And I guess, like, I'm waiting for something a little bit more like, I want it to be longer, and you don't need to be throwing buckets of cash at it for it to be good writing, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, with this show,
Right.
they need the visuals because of the magic, so that's important, but it's just hard to get, like, emotionally attached. That's why Genya, I think, is probably one of my favorite characters because she was the most sympathetic in my eyes, like, her storyline, there was a lot of trauma and pain there, so when it got to her, I was like, "Okay," like, it was the quickest way to get an emotional reaction from me, and I understand why they would do something like that because you're getting that connection, but some of the other characters, not so much.
I agree. I didn't find a lot of the characters to uh be characters that I could emotionally invest in until like the end of season 2.
Yeah, like,
Like
like, even with Kirrigan, like, he's a fun character, but, like, I'm just like, "Okay, like, wrap it up." Like, let's get him.
I
Let's get him.
I enjoyed his character for a great portion of season 1 because
Mhm.
he is like very Shakespearean and colonial, and he brings that like
Yeah.
toxic energy to everything he does. Like
He
I can
feels like a
appreciate.
stage actor. Like, he feels somewhat
Yeah,
like a stage actor, not like a,
he
I don't
does.
know, Hollywood or something.
He's so like they make it very obvious to keep it how old he is in his
Yeah.
like dialect, the way
Yeah.
that the vernacular he uses. Like I keep saying, it's so colonial compared to everyone else, but that like expresses that he's like, from a different time period. But
Mhm.
we've also got these like immortal men always chasing down super young women, and I guess it's because they still look young,
I
I
hate this
guess.
trope. I hate it. I hate it in not Shadow and Bone, but in general, like in fantasy. Like, why are these like 100-year-old beings like trying to come after young women? Stop.
I I'm gonna be honest with you. So like Ovan tells the crows that she's been alive for 400 years.
Hmm.
Girl, if I were 400 years old, do you think I'm gonna be, even if I had been like immortalized at 19 to whenever,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna be like, oh, I should definitely be with somebody who matches the age in which I was immortalized at, because that's what would visually work. No.
Well,
Like
if you look like a younger person, but I don't know. It feels like her husband, I'm assuming this older man that she's with, like I
he
don't
was so
know.
nice.
Yeah, he was a great guy. He was a great guy. But I would way rather see that than like her being with a teenager, you know?
Right, right.
Which look like that
Um
like adds this extra level of like creepiness to Kirrigan.
he is the biggest fucking incel. He's like he was an incel before incel was a thing, by the time period of the show, obviously.
Hmm.
But he's like super weird. He's a weird guy,
Yeah.
and he doesn't seem to know that he's weird, and he's been given a lot of power. So he gets to force everybody to tell him that he's not weird and that he's cool, which he is none of the sort. He is not cool. But
No.
Jesper is super cool. I love Jesper.
He's a
That's a cool
sweet
guy.
he is a sweet young man. I really like him. And two, also like when we're talking about emotional like maturity, when they go back through the poison that they were given and they're having these trippy like visions of their past, he goes back and sees his mother and it's a really like heartfelt moment, but he didn't come to and then he was like oh the trauma, the pain. He's like no, like I'm going to grow from this, I'm going to become better, and I'm going to do like what I should do. And he like takes that step and he's like I am who I am, you know. I'm so glad that they went in that direction instead of someone like Kaz who was like oh like my life. And it's just it's tiresome, like it makes me so tired. And I like Kaz, I like the actor a lot, but this whole storyline for him, it there was something that was just not for me in it. Pekka
It's
Rollins, don't care about this guy. How is he like the leader of the prison now? Like he goes to prison and now he's like in charge. Like I don't get what is going on. Now he like controls the fighting pits. Like what? He's a prisoner. Like it doesn't make sense.
he's I mean, okay, so here's how I look at Pekka Rollins. He's the only character that's a bigger L than Kirrigan. Like, how? How did you manage that? Like,
I
this
don't
dude is
get it.
terrorizing the world. You're
Right.
terrorizing a localized area and you're worse. In the
Yeah.
grand scheme, you're worse. Because if you were given the big area to terrorize, it'd be a whole lot worse. But I figured he got into that position the same way that, like organized crime can infiltrate prisons,
Yeah.
because he's basically a mob boss. But yeah, that whole like the Pekka Rollins Kaz Brecker story arc is kind of tired for me. But I mean, okay, I guess it's gonna give. I have to assume that it is the appetizer portion for season
Right.
3,
Right.
because I've after watching season 2, I realized that season 1 was story building for season 2.
Hmm.
Like there were a couple exciting points in season 1, like when the lights burst out of her in the tent, and her her new biggest fan
Hmm.
tells her she's Grisha. But there weren't a lot of like, and then they find the stag, but even that is like kind of a cold and solemn moment when they find the
Yeah.
stag. Season 2 was a totally different show.
Yeah, season 1 is like
Like,
very typical fantasy, like good versus evil. And then season
yeah,
2, it's like we've got a heist, we've got like a
we got
prince
all the things.
incognito, we've got the privateers, we've got the oh, okay. Totally forgot about this. My mind just went, ooh.
What is it?
Mateus, like
Okay.
can he like communicate with wolves? Is that a thing? Because I am way more interested in that storyline than like a lot of everything that
Okay.
happened in
So,
season 2. I need to
all right.
know.
So I have some notes about Matthias, and they are that he annoys me.
I
His character, bro, stop crying about everything, but okay, fine if you have to cry. The wolf thing, like the connection that
mhm.
he has to the wolves, I don't know if that's special to him, or if this is like
Is
a
this like
thing that is,
nature from a Fjorden when nature calls type scenario?
well, his religion, I think, is centered around, like, I think wolves are, I don't want to call them the mascot of the religion, but kind of the
Mhm.
mascot of the religion,
Yeah.
because they find wolves to be sacred creatures. Because remember
Mhm.
how, like, furious he was when he found out that they were fighting wolves in those pits, because you're not supposed to desecrate those creatures. So I don't know if like early on is like maybe it's a rite of passage in that religion that you learn to
Okay.
like communicate to the wolves,
Mhm.
but um I think Matthias has gotten an unfairly raw deal, and that's impressive for me to say that about like a character who is one
Mhm.
of the least emotionally intelligent characters in the
Mhm.
show. But he's gotten a very raw deal. I don't know what Nina sees in him personally.
No,
like,
no, no.
like
He's terrible to her. Like all of
I'm
season
not.
one, he's like, you're trash, you're garbage. And she's like, love me.
Yeah, like
I don't know.
Nina is so cool, and I don't know why she likes him so much. Maybe it's maybe there's some, we didn't get to see her hallucinate in Ovan's,
Right?
on the veranda of
Mm-hmm.
Ovan's porch. Like we didn't get to watch that. So, because all of those hallucinations were obviously the deep seated fears that those
Mm-hmm.
characters have that they need to come to terms with, or past pain that they need to come to terms with. Those flowers hallucinations acted as a therapist, just,
Right.
not gently. It was like, hey, remember this? I'm going to need you to deal with that right
But
now.
only like, but not everyone like overcame it, you know? Like Kaz is still the one that's like
Nobody did
having
but Jesper. No one did anything but Jesper.
it.
Kaz and Inej both missed their messages.
Or
Their
they,
messages, I think, they chose to ignore them.
right.
Yeah. And then Tolia, I'm not sure. We don't have a lot of background on him and Tamar. So I know
Hmm.
they're twins, and they are like Alina, where they're half Ravkin and half Shu.
The brother of the two twins, do you know who he is? Like, do you know who his character is exactly? For me,
Uh, uh.
he
Let's
is
hear it.
he's Lan Mandragoran from the Wheel of Time, hands down, same character, same. Like broody, kind of like poetic
Is who
samurai.
would be the Moraine? Who'd be the Moraine here?
Well, I don't mean
Nej.
like I just mean like the character, not like the relations that he has with anyone else, but like this like kind of broody fighter, like he's got skills, right? Like everyone is
Right.
doing their small science and whatnot, and he's like throwing axes and stuff. Like he was ultimately like probably one of the cooler characters, but then he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna recite a little poetry and do a little of this and that." And I'm like, you know
I
what?
love
Like you're
that.
just fun. You're just a fun
He is
character.
fun. I love him and his sister Tamar. Like
Hmm.
I love both of their characters. She is so smart. When she was like, "Hey, what if we just like kind of kill him and let the power transfer, and then we'll bring him back?" Now, granted, they ended up having to stab him, which wasn't part of the plan, but
Yeah.
these kinds of things never go as they're supposed to. But yeah, I really enjoy both of those characters. They're
Hmm.
both great.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any characters that I truly don't enjoy like whatsoever in this show, where even Kirrigan has his place. Like
Yeah.
he's colonial and creepy, and like you probably would need to get an order of protection from him, but
Yeah.
like he has his place in the show.
Hmm.
And okay, Pekka Rollins, actually, I could do without him completely with his character.
I'm
I
not
don't
like
care.
I'm not really sold on, I don't know, his connections to like so many things in this show. It's kind of like mind-boggling. But I mean, I get it. Like there are like mob rule in places. Like it's a real thing.
Right.
So relatable. Like I'm not saying it's that far-fetched, but I don't
I
know,
don't.
man. And also
Oh,
like
sorry.
the relationship between Inej and Kaz, like I don't know what to say about that because I think like if we're going for like a typical where there's a lot of like feeling between these two people, like they have chemistry and real chemistry, I think more so than any of the other couples in the show. Like you
Yeah.
can tell like when they touch each other that there's like something there. But at the same time, I'm just like, Inej, like he's not like you need to go
He's
on with
not the.
yourself, girl. Like
He
you are
needs.
sassy, you are talented, you're amazing. Like you can do anything and he like won't take his gloves off to touch your hand. Like,
Okay, so when she said to him, "How are you gonna like take me with gloves on?" I was like, "Oh gosh,
yeah,
truth."
truth.
Um, I think what she said was really fair.
Yeah, and
Um,
it wasn't as cutting as it could have been. Like she could have reacted very
poorly.
poorly. Yeah, but what she said, like it wasn't
No, it wasn't
aimed to
unfair.
hurt him. It was like, I have needs. Sorry, you know? I
I
saw.
just saw a white ear. Where did he go? The liege lord is awake. I don't know what he's gonna want. Oh, here he is. Here he comes. Do you see
How
him? Like, oh, here we go. Here we go. We gotta do the razzle dazzle stretch before he yells at me. Yeah. So what I want to ask you is the most important question. Who's your favorite character and why? Who's your
Okay.
Smaug?
Who's my
Who does
Smaug?
the Smaug?
Okay.
Who
My
does the
Smaug
horde go to?
my Smaug isn't necessarily my favorite character, but Jesper is pretty great. Like
Yes, Jesper.
he hits all of the beats of what I'm looking for. Like he's fun, he's exciting, he has a unique skill set, and he's generally just like every time you come back to him, it's like, oh, like he's kind of like my happy place for the characters.
Mm-hmm.
I also really like Genya, but for totally different reasons. Just,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
I think she's like this fighter character, like inside of her, not physically, but I appreciate that about her.
Uh, my Smaug award, 10 out of 10 goes to Jesper.
Okay.
There is no one else on the show that could win that award outside
Mm-mm.
of maybe Kirrigan, but
Yeah.
he is too colonial to be Smaug. He's not. It's it's not a Broadway production. He's like performing theater in the streets in the 1700s. Jesper is
He is
headlining Broadway right now.
Kerrigan is Shakespeare in the Park. Jesper is Broadway.
Yes, yes. Also, my other favorite character is unfortunately gone. It's Bagra. Like,
Yeah.
she was my other favorite character. I just loved watching her troll her son, like watching her drag
Hmm.
him to literally everyone and being like, and then when she like boots him through the the projection landscape, I
Yes.
don't, it was like watching
He
oh my
got
gosh, what's
like
that?
drop
Doctor
kicked.
Strange. Have you ever seen Doctor Strange from the
Yeah.
Marvel universe? Like
Hmm.
where she kicks him through like parallels of time and space,
Yes.
like, and then she's like, "You're a loser, and you've always been a loser." Like,
Agra spitting facts. I disown you.
oh, I'm gonna.
Mm.
So for my final thoughts, I think uh my new favorite character might be Nikolai slash Strumhold. Do you know why? Because I know that you've watched MH370. Because the first thing I thought about him was Strumhold's like Blaine Gibson, adventurer. What is that even? But you know what I was right about
Mm.
is that when you say that your life like that your profession in life is adventurer, what you really mean is independently wealthy.
Right. Right.
Because Stromholm is independently wealthy. But
Yes.
I like him regardless of that because he really does want to help people in the most effective way that he can. He listens, he tries to do right by people. He tries to take accountability. He holds, his family accountable.
Hmm.
He holds the people close to him accountable. I love it. He's a 10. He is a 10. I wish I could find
A
there
real
are so
life
many
Strummold.
emotional. I wish that I could. Where are
If
all
you
these emotionally intelligent men, madam? Can
leave your
somebody
name in the
tell me?
comments.
Yeah, leave your name in the comments. But also, if you watched it, tell me who your favorite character is and why. And if you want to live dangerously, tell me who your Smaug is too, because I want to
Yeah.
know that. I want your perspective on the characters because we've already established the landscapes and the costuming are a 10. So really, it's just about characters.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for coming on here and chatting with me all morning about this. We're
Always,
gonna have to do a
always.
we're gonna do a thing later about True Blood if anybody's ever watched that. We're gonna do a
15,
15th
15 year.
anniversary. Yeah, 15th anniversary rewatch.
For all the
Oh
youngins
man,
out there who have not seen True Blood, now's the time.
that's not gonna be able to be one episode though
No.
because I've had 15 years of watching this show sporadically to make comments, and it houses one of my favorite characters of all time. Like,
And if you want to
you
know
know who
what
I'm
that
talking
is,
about.
then you have to watch the next episode.
You'll have to watch it. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all for today, and I will talk to you later.